Good evening. I would like to call to order the meeting, the planning board meeting for Thursday, February 18th. If you would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Who's that? Oh, is that Allison? Okay. I just thought it said like Daisy or something.
Don't say Daisy.
Okay.
My daughter.
Oh.
On a Daisy meeting earlier for Girl Scouts.
No worries, no worries. Good evening. I'm going to introduce the board members. We have Jerry Graybill to my left, co-chair, vice chair. What are we calling you?
Vice Chair?
Vice Chair Mike LaRue to my right. We have Phil Roy, who is a regular member, correct, James? He's voting member tonight.
Voting member.
Yep, we have Allison Herlihy, who is a voting member tonight, and Amber Fecto, who is no relation to me, but Amber, you are an alternate tonight, so you will not be a voting member. Because I am a stickler for this stuff, would like to review, before we get into our meeting, some of the roles and responsibilities of the planning board, and then public comment and public hearing. So on the planning board, we are to constrain ourselves to the objective views that are in front of us and the rules that have been provided. Our own personal feelings must be put out the door. We are to review the evidence that's been provided, the application that's been provided, take information in as it's been reviewed by our town planner, and if a third-party reviewer has been called in, and see how those materials provided meet or do not meet the objective criteria in front of us. If a use is permitted in a zone, it is consistent with a comprehensive plan, and therefore it is an allowed use in a zone. So just because somebody might not like that it's an allowed use does not mean that the use is not going to go in the zone. Rezoning is the solution for that, and we are actually hearing some rezoning requests tonight as such. Just so everybody knows, public comment is just that. It's a public comment section. The public comes up, makes a comment. It's not public discussion with the board. We write it down, James writes it down usually, and we address it afterward during our regular meeting. And the same thing with a public hearing. A public hearing is for us to hear the public, not to have a discussion with the public. We take what you say and discuss it amongst ourselves, and then make changes to the plan as needed. So those are the rules. Let's begin. Public comment session is now open. Anybody that is a resident or property owner in the town of Berwick with something under the purview of the planning board is invited to come up to the podium, state your name and address, and let's hear it. And this is not the public hearing for the land use ordinance amendments or the zoning or the food sovereignty, just FYI. All right, seeing nobody come up, I am closing the public comment session, and we are moving on to the approval of minutes from the February 4th, 2021 meeting.
They're perfect.
They're perfect?
No, they're not perfect.
We'll see. Amber, did you see anything wrong with the minutes?
I didn't see anything wrong with them. They're perfect.
Wow. Allison?
I didn't see anything wrong.
No pressure. You can. Yeah.
Wow. Phil,
I
anything?
have no issue with the meeting minutes.
Jerry, you said no. Mike, you
I
said
have no
no.
issue with
Wow. It's never happened before, but I would be looking for a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I will move to approve.
All right. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor? And the minutes are approved. Moving on, we are going to open the public hearing for the land use ordinance amendments and the rezoning and the food sovereignty. So it's one public hearing for all of those things. And so I invite any member of the public to come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and let's hear it. I have 3 people sitting out here. Somebody's got to go first. Oh, we have people on.
What are you here for? Okay.
Okay.
What's your name? Oh, cool. Okay.
All right.
And we do have.
Yeah, Zoom can go first. Do we have people?
Yeah, so we have Freddie Dunn, Pedro, I'm not sure who John is, or Ilana.
Okay,
But
well,
I know Freddie, he reached out on, he called me, and I don't know if you want to start, Freddie.
His audio is connecting, I see that.
And
if you just let me know which portion of the land use ordinance amendments you're speaking on, whether it's the rezoning, the food sovereignty, or the just amendments.
I believe everyone that's on the call is for the rezoning.
The rezoning, okay. I think we lost Freddie, so, or is Freddie not?
He's talking, his audio may not be on.
Freddie, you're on mute.
I know Steve.
Oh, there he is. All right, we got Freddie.
Well, you can thank Denise for that, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
That's okay.
Both Circuit Road, rezoning. And we basically don't want it rezoned.
Okay. What number Circuit Road are you?
Well, my mother's 4th Circuit Road, and you go, there's 11 acres there.
Okay, so 4 Circuit Road, you want to opt out of the
But I just changed it since I talked to him.
So you have that information, James?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And I know, is that Steve from 5 Circuit Road?
Steve?
Yeah, I see Steve, he's kind of same as me.
Steve, did you want to add anything? Oh, you're connecting to audio.
We need to get better Wi-Fi out there on Circuit Road. But are you under the perception that Steve at 5 Circuit Road also would like to opt out of the rezoning?
Correct. Yep.
All right. Pedro?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I was just wondering if I could find out a little bit more about the pros and cons, or like what the reasoning for this proposal was.
Absolutely. We will we'll discuss that towards the end of the meeting, but we will let you know.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. John Rand?
Greetings, folks.
Hello?
I'm just here with the wood presentation on the solar project next on the agenda, so
Perfect.
don't have comments on your zoning at this time.
Okay, great.
I'm going to put you back in the waiting room.
We do have a couple others waiting to get in for that, but we'll sit tight until we're ready. That agenda item comes up.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll see you in a minute.
And Ilana, I hope I'm saying that right.
Yep, you're saying that right. I'm also here with John and with Wood.
Okay, you're going back in the waiting room.
Get back in the
Thank
waiting
you.
room then.
Nope.
All right. Allison, Paul? Public hearing? You guys are like our alternate planning board members. I love it.
I'm not used to speaking with the mask, those glasses.
Oh, I know, they fog right up.
So I'm Allison Graybill. I live at 10 Pond Road in Berwick. And I think Pedro was the one who asked for a little more information. I think we'll be able to provide that. I'm here with Paul, who's also a neighbor that lives on Perry Way. So we appreciate the board considering our request to rezone a portion of our neighborhood. We certainly noted that there are some people who are not, that were included in the original proposal that do not want to be a part of that, and we certainly respect that. Mm-hmm. So just wanted to make that noted. So as you know, we're zoned RCI, which is rural, commercial, industrial. But as you know, our neighborhood is really rural, residential, and agricultural. So when we looked at the definition of R3, which stands for rural, residential, and farm district, we really saw that that was more suitable to what our neighborhood was. And James, please correct me if I'm wrong, but when you look at that land use table, which really compares the different zones, and you compare R3 to RCI, there really isn't a lot of difference between the two, but what's most notable is that industrial is allowed in an RCI zone. And we really live in a residential neighborhood. So it just doesn't feel logically that we're in an RCI zone. We're really in an R3 based on how that zone is defined. And so with the recent development that's happening, we really thought this was a time to ask the board to consider looking at our neighborhood and zoning it as R3.
Very good.
Sorry, just one other example for people that are listening. I thought it was interesting in the land use table that, what would be allowed in our zone would be a junkyard, a warehouse, a laboratory, industrial could be a metal type business that, would obviously, as we have one in town, would be controlled would be controlled, but it just doesn't seem suitable for where we live. So, thank you.
Thank you, Allison. That was excellent.
I won't get within 6 feet of anyone. Paul Amatucci, 12 Perry's Way. And with respect to our neighbors on Circuit Road who do not want to participate, your choice. There's no reason for you to be dragged into a different zoning if you don't want to be there. So that's fine. There's not a whole lot, as Allison said, there's not a whole lot of difference here between RCI and R3, except that industrial use. And when we say industrial, we're talking about some industrial things. A waste facility is another thing that could be used in an RCI area. I don't want a waste facility in a nice residential neighborhood. And so it just seemed, as Allison said, to make entirely good sense to rezone this area to R3, which it really is, in fact. And as many of you know, the only reason that this came up was until about a year ago, when there was a lot of development going on relative to marijuana growing facilities, retail facilities, medical facilities, that sort of thing. It came to our attention that our neighborhood could be in not just a retail environment, but actually in a manufacturing environment, and we wanted to prohibit that if we could. And the word prohibit is a very strong word because there are ways for people to get conditional use. So that's what this historically is all about. We just want to eliminate that I out of this thing. And some of the other uses are perfectly acceptable. And if you go through the chart about what is permitted, what's not permitted, what is conditional use, and what is allowed without a permit, there's an awful lot of things that you can still do with your homes. And I know that some of my neighbors on Circuit Road want to do those things, and that's great. And, God bless you, we don't want to infringe on that. But it just seemed to us that this is a next logical step in getting our area where it should be rightfully zoned. So I hope you'll take that into consideration and vote positively to allow those of us who want to be zoned R3. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else for the public hearing for land use ordinance amendments, rezoning, or food sovereignty? All right, seeing nobody else come up, hearing nobody else, I'm going to close the public hearing. And
Say something real quick.
okay, go ahead, say something. Yeah.
So everyone, Pedro, Freddie, Steve, I'm going to put you guys in a waiting room. You guys can follow along on berwicktv.org or channel 95 on TV. So you'll be in a waiting room. You won't see anything until this application is through, and then you'll be let back in.
Yeah, you're going to come back so that we can, because we'll talk about all of this just after this application.
So hang tight.
Don't leave us.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on to new business. So we have a site plan review for the solar farm off Hubbard Road. It's in the R3 zone and the AP zone, and Berwick Hubbard Solar LLC is the applicant. James,
Yes.
take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Everyone's joining us from the waiting room. Welcome from the waiting room.
Yeah, welcome back from the waiting room.
Soltage, doing business as Berwick Hubbard Solar 1 LLC, is proposing to build a 4.3 megawatt it's DC power solar farm off Hubbard Road. There's no address yet. It's lot R17. It's located entirely in the Aquifer Protection District overlay. And the base zone is the R3 zone. The use is essential services, which is allowed by right in every zone. The project involves the creation of 5,000 square feet or more of impervious surface, and as a result, falls under site plan review. That's why we're here tonight. The estimated 425 solar racks and 11,000 solar panels will be approximately 8 feet high, and the farm will be surrounded by a 7-foot chain link fence. Approximately 19.9 acres of trees will be cleared and then revegetated beneath the array, so grassed. Construction is expected to last over 3 months in total, and as we know, it's a pretty intensive process from the 236 project. The project will utilize Forest Lane, which is shared by 2 property owners, 3 and 4. A deed for the lot shows legal access via Forest Lane. There's a few environmental considerations. A stormwater permit by rule has been submitted, and they provided a copy of that today. Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife and the Maine Natural Areas Program, they got back to the applicant today, and those were included in the packet that was sent out today. The project has been reviewed by the State Historic Preservation Office, and throughout the application, the applicant submitted several examples of low-impact design considerations. I have a few general questions for the applicant as a general discussion point. Where is the forested areas in relation to the abutters? What are the visual impact it will have on the neighbors? And some more discussion points. What exactly are the solar panels composed of? Does the board want to see more conceptual rendering showing the visual impact to the abutters? What form of surety is most appropriate for this project? And discussion on Forest Lane impacts, because as I understand it, is a gravel road. And next steps from there is deliberation by the board, determine if the application in front of you is complete, and then if found complete, schedule a site walk and public hearing, and the suggested date is for March 1st, 2021.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I know we have a lot of very well-educated people on this board that have asked to speak and ask questions. I'm sure that the Wood folks would like to speak first maybe, or just handle questions. Also, again, this is just the site plan review stage, so it's not the totally in-depth review, but the more questions we get out there right now, the better off we are.
I believe the applicant has a PowerPoint that's prepared to share with you.
Excellent. We love PowerPoints.
Yeah, we can share that if I should do that now. I can pull that up, and then
Go ahead.
Brett can start us off, and then we'll go through introductions.
Okay, yeah. While Andrew pulls up the PowerPoint, I'll get started. My name is Brett Pingree. I live here in Falmouth, Maine, and I work for Soltage. Soltage is a longtime solar developer, owner, operator. Long time in the solar industry is we started in 2006. So that's a fairly long time in this industry. I've worked for them for 3 years, and we develop projects. We also own them and operate them. And that's an important distinction. For me, it is because we end up owning these projects and operating them. We end up putting a little more time and care into developing these projects as good projects because we're the ones that end up having to own them, versus other companies that may develop and then sell the asset later on. So that's the kind of business we're in, purely solar focused. We have 80 projects that we own and operate across 15 states. We're up to 15 states now. The company, what we usually do is we hire contractors, consultants to help us with the permitting, with the construction, and we usually use local companies as much as possible. Wood Engineering is a company we've worked with for many years, and they've helped us. They do great work on the permitting and engineering side. They have a large headquarters in Portland. We put the construction out to bid. We have 2 projects that are under construction here in Maine right now, one in Acton and one in Naples. Those projects, we hired a local firm to build those for us. And I think that's probably a good overview of Soltage right now. What we'll do is I'll let Andrew get into some of the details that are particular to the project. And I'll be part of this process the entire way through. So I'll be on every call and I'll be at the site walks with you so I can answer questions at any time. I'm not that far away either, so that's convenient if I need to be in person for anything.
Thanks, Brett. So I have the slides up that went through the Soltage profile. I have a couple on wood. Yes, thanks for having us. My name is Drew Vardakis. I'm a civil engineer and project manager with Wood, short for Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions. It's a mouthful, but just some snippets from our website. Like Brett mentioned, we're a consultant. We've worked with Soltage for several years. We do the civil engineering, the initial site investigations, the topo property survey, the wetlands investigations. So our team, John and Alon also on the call from Wood, involves engineers, hydrologists, environmental scientists, surveyors, wetland scientists. So that's our role in the project, supporting Soltage as the consultant through the design and the permitting. So you can find lots about us on our website, but like Brett mentioned, we're based in Portland and Chelmsford, Massachusetts, so have the East Coast and Northeast pretty well covered here with our team. So just getting into the site, as James mentioned, the property owner going by the name Ain Holdings LLC, that's the Seawell lot off of Hubbard Road and Forest Lane, map R1, lot 7 in the R3 zone. So it's a much larger property that extends down to the southwest. As you'll see, I have some maps and figures to come, but we're focused on the 31-acre lease area up to the northeast of the road, northeast of the property adjacent to Hubbard Road and Forest Lane. Mostly wooded lot with some trails throughout, setback from Hubbard Road. Property setbacks are shown on the plans, 25 feet on the front and the sides. And as I mentioned, we were out at the property doing wetland delineation and topo and property survey this past fall. If I'm going too fast or you can't see or hear, just please flag me down. I know I can go pretty fast. So just moving on. These were some of the figures and maps provided in the application packet. Here is just an overall view of the site. Hubbard Road off to the east here. Can you see my cursor if I move it?
Yes.
Okay. So the 31-acre area I mentioned is this black line, and then these orange and red lines is where the project is located. And the rest of the property goes down back to the river there. another map aerial aerial image with showing the woods and topography as you go back. Showing the wetlands areas that are on, excuse me, available online mapping. However, we went and confirmed this in the field with our wetlands folks. And this was the result of that topo survey and wetland delineation, showing the property lines around the perimeter here. And then these are the wetland flags shown through the back of the site. There was that green wetland pocket that was here, and then the rest of the property goes back to the west.
If you want to come up, okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure that the members of the public that are here to see this can see our screen too, but feel free to bring your chair up. Go ahead, Drew, sorry.
Sure, no worries, thank you. So that's the base plan. That's the existing conditions shown in the drawing set. And then as we go to the proposed project, so you mentioned there's some people familiar with solar. I'll kind of go through the basics. You may know this already, but feel free to stop me or we can get into questions later. But it's a ground-mounted solar PV system. So these are driven posts in the ground with fixed modules facing south. These aren't tracking modules. It's a ground-mounted system. Panels don't move. As James mentions, a 4.3 megawatt DC system equates to about 3.5 megawatts AC. 11,000 solar PV modules. As James mentioned, it's mounted on a racking system in an orientation that's about 13 modules wide by 2 tall. So each racking system holds 26 modules, and then those racking systems are installed in a linear fashion, east-west. And they're sloped facing south. So the lower front end is about 2 or 3 feet off the ground, and then the higher back end is about 8 feet off the ground. And so the array is surrounded by a 7-foot high chain link fence. And that fenced area on the plan is about 16.5 acres. And then within the project is the electrical components, the inverters, the transformers, to collect the solar energy, and then run it out to the utility poles and to the interconnection point. Let's see. So again, James mentioned the permitting we've been through. We're here before you tonight for site plan review. We've submitted our stormwater permit by rule application to Maine DEP. Also submitted project review requests to IFNW and Natural Areas Program. And we've had some feedback from them. We're actually corresponding with them now for this project and some others to clarify some of the species they noted that were in the area, not on the project site, but in town. So we're just continuing correspondence with them to make sure we get all our bases covered there with respect to the environment. Then also MHPC for Historic Commission. We did do a check. There aren't any mapped historical sites, but same as the other agencies, we do have review requests and they get back to us if they have anything in their database. And we're just waiting on their response as well. So as we get into site work and construction, so access, as you'll see, it comes off of Hubbard Road and Forest Lane. We're gonna have a new 18-foot wide gravel road entering the site with access for maintenance vehicles to get in and out of the site. There's just under 20 acres of tree clearing that allows for the project installation and to reduce shading for the project. And underneath the array will be a grass surface that will be vegetated, primarily for stormwater management. In the drawing set, there's a whole sheet for an erosion and sedimentation control plan, complying with the DEP standards that kind of go hand in hand with our stormwater permit by rule application. So all these types of things we look at through the design and permitting and maintenance of the site. Here's a snippet of the proposed site plan. So if you have the drawing set, this is the second sheet. We had our base plan from the survey and the wetlands delineation. Now we have the solar array design that Soltage develops, and we incorporate into the drawing set with the ENS controls, erosion and sedimentation controls around the perimeter, giving some buffer to the wetlands on the backside. Here's Hubbard Road and Forest Lane, and the access road coming in with some turnarounds at the north and south ends. And I can zoom in on the drawing set later if you want, but the fence is an X line that surrounds the project here. And these black and white lines running east-west represent the modules on those racking systems I described. Some questions that come up, glare, noise, emergency procedures. So the modules are designed to absorb the sunlight, contrary to what you might think. It's glass and there's reflection from the sun, but actually there's a lot of these projects near airports and highways. DOTs and the FAA have looked at these, and the modules absorb the sunlight. So those have gone through screening processes through various transportation agencies. Noise, there's a low hum that's emitted from the transformer. If you picture a transformer similar to something like a CVS or something, a green box that has a low hum to it, there's specifications on decibel ratings. If you're 5 feet away, it gives off the noise of a ceiling fan or an air conditioner. But these are typically located in the center of the array, so well far from the property lines or any abutters, so relatively no noise associated with the project. Then emergency training, I did have some initial correspondence with the fire chief, and he had some of these questions too. But standard procedure for Soltage in these projects is to have coordination with the fire, police, any other emergency departments in town for training on how to shut down the system, where the shutoffs are at the poles, access to the gate. Typically there's a Knox box or some sort of locking mechanism that all the departments have, in addition to Soltage, so that everyone is aware of the system and how to shut it down and how to access it if there's any emergencies. And I just had some photos in here just for the benefit of everybody from some past projects. There's the access road going in. There's gravel going over some fabric, and an example of one of the erosion controls. It's a straw wattle. Here's some site clearing. Here's the racking system. So these are those driven posts I mentioned. They're not on sometimes you'll see a ballasted system on a concrete block. Those are typically for landfills or brownfields where you can't penetrate the ground. But here we have what you call a green field. It's natural vegetation, so these posts can be driven in the ground. And then there's the racking system facing the south. So it's kind of like a puzzle. All the pieces go together and fit together as the modules come through. There's just more of the racking. Some different sites here in the winter and a sandy site over here. And then the horizontal racking is going in, just kind of running along east-west. Some of the wiring starting to go in underneath. I mentioned the electrical, so this is in a concrete equipment pad. All the conduit is laid underground, and then the concrete, most of the time, is poured in place. It's usually for the ballast. Sometimes the ballast systems can be precast, but the pad's usually poured in place with a concrete truck like that. And then just more of the underground conduit runs, within the system, coming from the inverters, underneath the array, and out to a pad. And then this is a longer run out to an interconnection. That's the medium voltage, the larger conduit. And then getting closer to the end, these are the modules going on. Grass hasn't grown in yet here, but here, this is one of the sites along the highway. You can see in the background there. And then the finished product where the grass has grown in, and chain link fence around the perimeter. So just some typical example photos if folks aren't familiar with these types of projects. But I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Happy to get into the specifics that James mentioned or anything else from the board, but that's our presentation, and happy to take it from there.
Awesome, thank you. So there've been no waiver requests for this, right?
Nope.
Have you heard from the fire chief? Just on the road and whatnot?
I was
access?
linked in on one of the email conversations, but I'm not sure what the final say from chief is.
All right, well, Mr. Graybill, questions?
The only question I have, this is Jerry Graybill, is I've heard that CMP is having issues right now in Maine with the solar farms that are going in. They have 600 projects, they said, and the upgrades that they're required to do is costly. Have you heard anything about that, and would that affect this project?
Yeah, thanks for the question. How much time do you have tonight to talk about this?
Nope,
Oh
not
my-
that much.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know. Let's see. In a nutshell, there's been a few challenges working with CMP. I'll be polite about our utility. And the latest one has been this what they're calling an overvoltage issue. They appeared to have jumped the gun. They didn't conduct the proper power flow studies, and they issued some notifications that to some projects that there were going to be $12 million additional costs per project, which obviously is exorbitant to be a little under qualifying here. There's been such a backlash against CMP. They've since sent several documents that have said the upgrades are going to be not millions, but maybe $100,000 to $200,000. So this project did get a bunch of those letters that said it might be millions, but now it might be 100,000. So that shouldn't be, well, it's hard to say what's going on with CMP. It's hard to understand how to plan a business around these kinds of messages, but based on the last communication we got last week from CMP, it shouldn't be a major cost impact. And so that we're not expecting there to be a problem. I will mention there's a second issue that CMP has raised a few months back. Their transmission cluster studies, and those are ongoing studies on the impact, the collective impact of multiple solar projects on the transmission grid. Those studies are ongoing. This project is most projects are involved in these cluster studies. It's a little bit of preemptive analysis on the greater network. So we won't have the results for this project and that particular transmission cluster study probably until May or June. So we won't know the outcome of that study till then. So there could be some cost impacts from that transmission cluster study that we get May and June. And it sounds like we're going to get a little bit of this overvoltage upgrade cost impact as well. I know that was probably more than you wanted to hear, but
No, that answered the question that I
Jerry's
had.
an engineer, so he wants to hear it all.
We're dealing with a couple projects where I work right now, and we're having problems with CMP getting the systems put onto the grid. They just can't support, so just beware.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, but we're hanging in there.
Okay, go on.
Anything else? That's good. Phil?
Well, first, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to address our concerns related to the project. And I had an opportunity to review your proposal, and it seems very robust on the issues of site prep, construction, and the op plan. One area of concern for myself is, as I read Section G, specifically, or Attachment G, Section 2.4, the decommissioning plan seems less robust. And I think for me, and as somebody who's a good steward for the townspeople, that's of concern. So, and as I review the plan, it seems Soltage has been in business for roughly 15 years. What is the expected lifespan of the solar field?
Yep, I'll take that, Drew. No, I super appreciate you bringing this up. So let me use so we've built, Soltage has 10 projects in Maine that we're developing, that I've developed here. And 2 of the projects have started construction. One is in Acton and one is in Naples. In every case, we require ourselves, we work with the town to establish a decommissioning bond, some kind of surety bond, so that in the event that Soltage goes bankrupt or for some reason we walk away from the project, that there are funds in place set aside to ensure that the project is completely decommissioned and brought back as close to the natural state as possible. We've done that with every project we've ever built and owned, and that certainly won't change here. With Acton and Naples, those were conditions in the site plan approvals that we received from the towns. And what we did was we commissioned a third-party engineering firm, TRC, and I'd be happy to share those reports with you. A much more detailed, specific decommissioning report with costs for each specific project. This is a little bit more generic because we haven't actually completely finished the design of the project. We're close, but we wait till the project is fully designed, 100% finished in design, before we would have a detailed decommissioning plan assessment developed by a third-party group, not Wood Engineering, who helped us design it. So it does create a little bit of check and balance there, and it's also when the project's fully developed, designed. And I'd be happy to share with you the, I think it'd be fine for me to share the Acton or Naples more detailed plan, more detailed costs, and I think you'll find that to be more than satisfactory, but certainly open to, if you look at the examples that I'm happy to share with you. If you find any areas you want to improve, we'd be more than happy to work with you on that. Your other question was the lifetime. So these panels have a 25-year warranty, and it's kind of an interesting thing in the solar industry. It's fairly new compared to certainly coal or gas. I mean, it's very new compared to that. I mean, there's panels still in California and some of the early markets in New Jersey that are still operating, and they still operate very well, which is why they have 25-year warranties. There's not a lot of stuff these days that have 25-year warranties. But these panels don't move. They don't have any moving parts. They're very simple. There's not a lot to them. And so that's why it's easy for the manufacturers to put 25-year warranties in. There's full expectation that these panels are going to operate for at least 20 years, if not more. Our contracts with the state, with CMP, are a 20-year revenue contract. So our expectation is they're going to operate for 20 years. And we even have in the lease agreements with the landowner, we have the opportunity to extend the lease agreement beyond that 20 years because we expect that these panels will continue to operate. While we're talking about this, I'll let you know that since we own and operate these power facilities, the solar arrays, we monitor them daily. Our revenue, our whole investment thesis is based on these panels producing power at their maximum productivity every day, at least when the sun shines and there isn't snow on them, for the lifetime, for 20 years. So we monitor these panels. If one breaks or stops working, we get an alert right away. And because that's how we make our money, we move very quickly to remove any broken panel, so that we can have that array continue to be financially productive. So if a panel breaks or somebody shoots one or a kid throws a rock at it, I don't know, something like that, then we remove it very quickly before there was any any outage that would impact our investment.
Okay, so how many fields have you got, has your company in particular decommissioned?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, how many solar projects has Soltage decommissioned?
Zero. Yeah,
Okay.
zero. We've been in business since 2006, and these are 20+ year facilities. There really hasn't been very many, if any, solar arrays decommissioned industry wide. It just hasn't been done because they have such a long life.
So given that, how could we or you as the company accurately forecast the total cost of decommission, given that one hasn't been done and your company has not done one? What level of confidence do you have in your ability to forecast the expenses that'll be required to dispose of and return it back to its natural state?
Sure. So, I think returning the site back to the natural state is pretty straightforward. I mean, there isn't heavy molestation of the site. I mean, there's these steel posts that are driven in. Those are easily pulled out. You can pull those out relatively easily. Those are costs that you can assess. Tearing down the fence is an easy cost to assess. Planting trees back, if that's what's required, again is a fairly straightforward cost to estimate. Pulling the conduit out and grading they're all fairly. I think that when you have a third-party firm like TRC, which is a very reputable engineering firm, and when we're looking at, it's not like we have to blast out, reinforced concrete or tear down multi-floor buildings. I mean, we don't have to do that. I think it's when you actually break apart the actual steps that are required, there isn't a lot to these arrays. There's a small concrete pad. We'd have to get an excavator and chip that out and scrape it out and regrade the ground. We have to pull the conduit out. But again, these are not complicated heavy engineering intensive reclamation activities. The panels would get removed, and then whatever secondary market exists at that time, there's a heavy scrap metal recycling industry now, as with where our society is today, and certainly there's a secondary market for used panels. Currently today, you can Google all sorts of solar panels if you want to buy secondhand ones. I suspect in 15 or 20 years, whenever these panels would have to be removed, that there'll be that secondary industry will still be intact. So I think, like I said, I'd be happy to share the TRC report with you. I think you'll find it very detailed, and I think it's safe to say it's very accurate.
All right. I guess the only outlying concern I would have, you did mention the town of Acton and another where you guys had set up some type of a financial mechanism, be it a escrow or a bond for decommissioning. I think the board would be interested in seeing how those numbers, what formula was used to come up with an equitable number that not only serves your purposes, but more so the community of Berwick, and what formula or financial forecasting or prognostic reasoning was used to say we're going to set aside X amount of money that will potentially grow to X sum for decommissioning, and how that is set up, whether it's in an escrow or a bond. I think that would be really beneficial for our decision making.
Yep, definitely for the next meeting.
And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to share that with you. If we can get an email, Drew, I suspect you have the email. James will send it to you. We'll get that to you right away. You can start looking at it. And if you have questions before the next meeting, I'd be more than happy to, start tearing into this, get your feedback, and be more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Brett.
Mr. LaRue?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Amber Fecto, any questions? No?
No.
I don't see Allison's face on the side of the screen here, but Allison?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay. I hear you. Oh, there you are. I don't have any other questions necessarily besides what James has already raised as far as how much forestation is really going to be in between. I mean, I know some of these people that are butters. I sold them their houses. So, you know, what is the array going to look like from people's yards, from the neighbors' houses?
Yeah, so Drew, why don't you pull up, you have a good overview of the project with the wooded, and I think when you're able to demonstrate the forested portion of the abutters property plus the setback of the Ain Holdings property, I think that may answer that question.
Okay, good.
The heavily wooded lot is
Yes.
the short version, and there's a large wooded buffer that will be remaining. But let's let Drew do his magic here.
Can you see this?
Yes.
So this is an older design array that we worked through iterations with Soltage. It has an older road, but it at least gives the array over an aerial a little bit better than the cover sheet does.
Sure.
This is just the aerial map without the project. But we can develop some other aerial imagery that's a little bit better than this, if that'll be advantageous. But for purposes of this discussion, you know, it's still got the array limits in this red line, which is the fence. So you can see there's Tallow Lane off to the west, the two abutters off here. With this, you know, the property line, we have a 50-foot setback from the property line. That was something that the owner wished to have, was a 50-foot right away around the perimeter. So we have 50 feet between the property line and any fencing or anything having to do with the array. So there's those two there on the west, and I believe there's another off to the east here. So same, the tree clearing line is around this side to the east, and then it's hard to see, but the blue property lines are over here with this amount of vegetation on existing on the other lots over there.
Yeah, and I'll add also, if we were to determine through the design of this project and the implementation and through the course of our, you know, working with you, the planning board, that there were some gaps or some concern areas that of visual impact, that we could certainly look at some ways to solve that by putting some screening up. You know, there's different approaches. You know, we can put up arborvitae or forsythia or things like that if there were some areas that we thought were going to be a real concern. So far, we think there won't be, but you know, let's determine that together, and if not, let's figure out how to address it if there is a concern.
I think that's a good idea. I think once we have the public hearing and the site walk, I don't know how accessible all of that is back there because it's all forested right now. So I'm not sure we're going to really be able to get a good grasp of it from the site walk. But I'm sure also if the abutters come in for the public hearing, they've got a good idea of how far they can see beyond their property line. And we literally just approved a solar project a few months ago, and so we're all very familiar with what it looks like and how a deforested parcel of land, and that one is a smaller project than this one. So I think we're all very sensitive to that and what it looks like because we all drive by it almost every day. So screening, I think, is going to be very important. Yeah. So
yeah, we like this site, and you know, we like this site. We try to pick sites. So we've been doing this a long time, and you know, it's our goal to have as positive as an experience as possible with the town. And we will, you know, we're going to be owners and operators for a long time. And so we really, it's important for us to have a good working relationship with the town and the abutters. And that was one of the reasons why we like this parcel, is because it is set back and it isn't in your face, so to speak. Clearly from our experience, the more you can move these projects out of sight, the better. And so that was one of the reasons we were attracted to this parcel is that it is set back significantly from the public eye.
Great. All right, so since we've all had an opportunity to ask questions, has everybody on the board had an opportunity to review the application for completedness? Any questions about the completedness of the application?
Just if they're going to provide the documentation and a little more meat and potatoes on the decommissioning.
For the, yes, for the next,
decommissioning and
yeah.
a financial mechanism for assisting in the decommission.
Absolutely. The application looks complete to me, so I would be looking for a motion for application completedness, which would allow us to move on to the next step and have a public hearing and a site walk and all that good meaty stuff that we like to do. So, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we find this application complete.
I will second that motion.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Nope. Okay, and I will do a roll call vote because Dave Andreessen used to love those. Jerry?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
And Allison?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So with that, we have the application complete, and we can move forward with this to schedule a site walk and a public hearing.
Yeah. For
2 weeks, or what, when are
yeah,
we
March,
meeting again?
March 4th.
March 4th will be the public hearing on this. And so the public hearing, so anybody that's like, if you're in a butter, anybody that's in a butter or has questions for these folks can come to that public hearing, and that's where your questions will be heard, and then we will address any concerns that come up from that. And public hearings can also be extended. It might not just be a one-day thing. We might extend it if we have a lot of things we have to work through, but we certainly look forward to the public's input on this. All right, so March 4th?
March 4th.
Excellent. Now let's move on to the land use amendments again. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Really, really good, very thorough presentation.
Thank you.
Just one question on the site walk. Is that for the board only, or would you like us to attend?
I would like somebody to attend to show us what we're looking at.
Absolutely. So you'll just be in contact about a date and a time?
Yes. James will be on that with you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Do you want 5
Thanks,
o'clock?
everybody. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, folks.
All right, so now we're going to pull the people out of the waiting room. All right, we're all back. We're ready to talk about land use amendments. So I want to talk about the rezoning first because that's obviously what people are most concerned about. And what I wanted to point out was what a lot of people don't know about, and that is our land use table. It's in our land use ordinance. It is on the internet. You can look it up. You can look it up right now if you want to. Go to berwickmaine.org and look it up. So the land use table tells us in each zone what is an allowed use without having to do anything, what is a conditional use, which means you come into the planning board and get an approval with conditions attached to it, what's not an allowed use, I don't know, permitted use. So the difference between R3, which is what this little neighborhood wants to be zoned to, and RCI, is that in RCI, you can have an auto graveyard, a junkyard, or auto recycling. So these are the things that would be eliminated if these properties get switched to R3. In RCI, you can have a laboratory. You can have a laboratory research facility. You can have industrial use. You can have warehouse storage and distribution. You can have a waste facility. I don't even know what the definition of that is in our land use ordinance, but it doesn't sound good.
Like a transfer station.
Okay, you can have a transfer station. You could have fringe financial. Love those. Medical marijuana cooperative or medical marijuana production facility. So those are the differences. Everything else is allowed in R3. So it doesn't limit businesses, doesn't limit home businesses. It limits that really intense industrial use. Just wanted to make that really apparent because I don't think a lot of people know the difference between the two. Jerry, anything to add? Mike? So would we push that forward with eliminating 4 and 5 Circuit Road? Is that
It'd be the Dunn's property as well, and I would probably ask Pedro if he's had time to
Oh, yeah.
think about if you want to be in RCI or R3.
So I'd like to just leave it how it is. But,
Okay.
you know, I have no concerns if anybody else wants to swap over. That's totally fine with me.
Yep, absolutely.
So my recommendation at this point would be to not include people that weren't here tonight, but to include, you have contiguous lots between the lots that we know want to be in it. And I think, you know, I was talking to Paul earlier today about, I think it's a good incremental step, and we're going to be working on this with comprehensive planning. So it's not the last time we're going to be working on zoning.
Will it go back out to public comment? So if there are people who are concerned, they can
No.
chime in? It will
This
not.
is it.
Okay,
So,
this is it. Okay.
so what happens from here with all of these is that, because we do have a lot of new board members and the public that hasn't been through this before, is that we will vote to recommend to send this off to the selectmen. Then the selectmen have to decide that this is a good idea. Then they have to vote to send it off to the town, and then the town has to vote. So there's 3 votes in between RCI and R3. It's a pretty intensive process. So yeah, so that's all we're doing is that. So that makes sense, James. Should we vote to push this to the selectmen separately? Like, should we do rezoning? Are they all going to be separated on the ballot?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So amend the rezoning request to eliminate 4 Circuit Road, 5 Circuit Road.
So yeah, it'd be lots 16B, which that's Marlene's property.
Okay, yeah.
17, which is Jerry. 19-2, I believe, is Heidi.
Okay.
And then 19-3 is Paul.
So
And
those,
then, excuse me, and then 18 is Ben. And I assume Ben wants, Ben Goff, yeah.
okay, so those are the lots that we are looking to rezone.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need a motion to move this forward to the selectmen to rezone lots 16B, 17, 19-2, 19-3, and 18 to R3.
Make a motion.
Okay, so moved by Jerry Graybill. Second? I'll second that. All right. Seconded by Allison Herlihy. Any further discussion or questions from the board on this? Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote because I love those. Jerry?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so we will move those forward. So next we are going to vote on the land use amendments.
Yeah, I'll cover those. So
Yep, go ahead.
Pedro, Freddie, you guys understand that you got your properties are staying the same? Okay,
Yes.
good.
Okay, Ben's on.
I'm kicking you guys out. You can watch on BCTV. Have a good night. Good to see you, Pedro.
Oh yeah, Heidi's on there too.
Yep.
And Ben.
Okay.
What's that?
Hi, Kristen Moisens, 5 Circuit Road, just getting on, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Your property's not being changed.
Yes,
Yes, so we,
I just heard that.
perfect.
All right.
Stuck it.
What was
Good
your
to-
question?
Good to
Allison?
see you. Thanks for being here. But I'm kicking
Yes,
you. But it's
wish I
all,
could see people, but I can't really see.
yeah.
Do we get notified when it's going to the select board?
It'll be going to the
So
select board.
Kristen, we're moving on to the next agenda item. So I'm kicking you out.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
I think it's their. I
Yeah.
think it's their next meeting.
Thank
I
you.
don't know if you'll be notified. It's like the. Just keep track of the selectmen's meetings for when they're doing their public hearing on the.
It'll
on
be
the
in their agenda.
Yeah. So just keep checking the selectmen's agenda for that.
So I'm pretty proud of this. The land use amendments thing for public education, adding notes to it. I think it's a pretty good system. Hopefully it makes sense. So frontage, number one, it's specified in Article 7.21, access to lots, and the note says that this point refers to section 7.21 in the land use ordinance, and then it shows the things that are crossed out. And the note there saying having definitions within definitions is not best practice because it can lead to conflicts, as this section does that exactly. Legal access to lots is specified in 7.21, and it has a conflict with what is prescribed there. So what this specifies is it doesn't include the 50-foot right-of-way that you can get legal access off of that. So if you're going by this definition, you can't get frontage off a 50-foot right-of-way. That's what we've been doing forever.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. So it's eliminating that, and it simplifies the definitions, which I like. Moving on to number 2. So note 3, you'll see on page 2, the reason why this paragraph is crossed out is that it's being replaced by a table. The table makes, it says the same exact thing as the paragraphs. It just does it in a much cleaner way. I think the table is just much easier to access. And the only change is specifying how the appropriate points for culverts and drainage ditches are determined. So nothing effectively is changing except for that part where it says it's as determined by the town of Berwick or a third-party engineer. Right now, the ordinance says drainage ditches and culverts shall be installed at all appropriate points. There's no mechanism to know what the appropriate points are. Going down, so number 4, note 4 here, all the stuff that's crossed out, the provisions refer to a scenario for a lot that is created before 1987 on a town discontinued road. I think there's maybe 3, maybe 4 town discontinued roads in the town of Berwick. There's not that many lots that are created before 1987 on these discontinued roads. But even with that said, all this crossout is doing is it's eliminating a lot of redundancy. Everything that is, so what this is saying is one dwelling unit shall be allowed with the 2 dwelling unit standard on a town discontinued road prior to 1987. This provision, which already exists, allows for a second dwelling unit provided it's given to a child. And again, these standards, it's all the same. It's just eliminating the redundancies. Moving on to number 3, the marijuana amendments. Note 5, excuse me. The RCI and 236, that's restricting it to frontage in the RCI zone on major highways. Going down to number 6, the purpose for that amendment is to have the 1,000-foot setback provision apply to businesses on lots that are not next to each other, even if they're on the same ownership. So it just clarifies that if you got one business and they want to open up a marijuana business that's less than 1,000 feet, that's not permitted. Note 7, for 2 amendments, it's allowing marijuana testing facilities. This is a far less intensive use, and for security purposes, but also for property taxes and personal property, it's a win for the town if one wants to come in. Amendments 4 through 7 are very minor in nature. We've already gone through these.
We've beaten them
3 times.
Yeah.
Number 8, I reworked number 8 from some discussions from the previous discussions. I'm curious what you think of it. For the max building footprint, the building footprint may exceed 15,000 feet for first floor commercial, manufacturing, recreational parking uses. This allows for the footprint of buildings in the Village Overlay District to exceed 15,000 square feet, as long as the first floor use is for commercial, manufacturing, recreation, or parking. The buildings in the Village Overlay District must be consistent with the planning board design guidelines. So the purpose of the max building footprint, one was to limit massive residential buildings, only residential buildings, and two was to control the aesthetics. We're able to do both with this, and we have design guidelines that must be found consistent. So even if it exceeds 15,000 square feet, it can't just be this, massive monolithic building.
Yeah.
It still has to have windows and different facades that break up.
Yeah.
So you just took out the 25,000 and put the words in to say that it could just for the first floor.
Yeah. I like that rework, actually.
Yeah.
Nice
It makes
work.
more sense that
Yeah.
way.
Just there's a few different conversations we've been having. I think that's probably the best way. And that, I'm done talking.
Any other, Allison or Amber, do you guys have any questions or additions or subtractions from that?
No. No. I'm good. I'm good too. I don't have anything.
Philip?
I have nothing.
No? Mike?
No.
No? Jerry? Okay.
Good.
So then I need a motion to move these proposed land use ordinance amendments to the select board.
I will make a motion to.
Okay. So I have a motion by Jerry, looking for a second.
I will second.
Bill, second. Roll call vote. Jerry?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Allison?
Yep.
And that's a yes from me, so we will move these forward to the select board. And last but not least,
Yeah, the food sovereignty. I think this one's fairly straightforward. I don't think I need to cover it. Let me.
Yeah, I think we've beaten this one to death also. We've made changes to it, and
Yeah,
it
was
is
checked by legal. And
Yep, checked by legal, passed down from the state. So I'm looking for a motion to move the food sovereignty ordinance to the select board.
Moved forward.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, moved by Allison, thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Phil. Any further discussion? No? Okay, Jerry?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
And that's a yes from me, so we will move the food sovereignty ordinance changes off to the select board. Hallelujah. All right, so that being done, we are moving into our second public comment session of the night. Anybody that has something that it has nothing to do with the solar farm, because they're not here, we can't talk about applications if the applicant isn't in front of us, but anything else under the purview of the Berwick Planning Board is invited to come to the podium. Do we have anybody in the waiting room dying to speak?
Nope, no emails. But do you see who else is here?
Jennifer McCabe.
Hi, Jen.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. Sorry, I forgot to introduce you. I'm really not that great at this chairman job quite yet, but I'll get there.
I wasn't in here at first. I couldn't figure out the new computer. So
Oh, okay.
You sound great, though.
You do sound great.
Thank you.
Okay, so seeing nobody come forward for public comment, I'm going to close the public comment session and informational items. James?
There was a listening session, community session with Great Falls Construction. I think it was their 7th community meeting. All of those are on demand on BCTV's YouTube and on the town's website. I suggest checking them out.
Yeah, good
They
idea.
are full steam ahead. They're looking to have the buildings in process of being demolished before April 1st.
Cool.
They have a financial incentive to have those buildings at least partially down, all the ones that are coming down by April 1st. So
Great.
they're going to be moving along pretty fast.
When do they plan on coming back in front of us?
They they fixed one of the buildings, the coffee shop, to bring it forward.
Okay, good.
They're working on curb cuts for School Street.
Yeah.
And they gotta work on their building footprint.
Okay.
They're gonna move it. Oh, I guess I can't really talk too much in detail,
Right,
but
right.
they're looking at contingencies in case the ordinance doesn't pass.
Okay.
But
yeah, that's great. Good. Dave Andreessen is improving, and I don't know, because I'm not on Facebook, but I heard that he's either moving to rehab or in rehab already. So that's really good. They're getting him up. He's interacting. I talked to him on the phone, told him that I was the new chairman of the planning board, and he said, Nicole Fecto? That's weird. That's exactly what he said. I got 4 words out of the guy on
So he's back to normal.
Yeah, 4 words out of the guy on Super Bowl Sunday. But it was really good to hear him, and he's doing very well. So the prayers are working. Keep them up. And I guess that's it. So the next item on our agenda is the adjournment. I'm looking for a movement for adjournment.
On this, the 18th day of February in the year 2021, live from the esteemed Burgess Meeting Room in the depths of the Berwick Town Hall, if there are no further topics for discussion, I would like to move to adjourn.
I love it. I second. And we don't vote on adjournment, so that was the best one.